4 warnings, 2 languages, 1 sudden blast that no one could explain. Off Venezuela's northern coast, a U.S. Navy ship and a fast civilian boat entered each other's sights, and within minutes, the vessel vanished in smoke. What followed was not just a tragedy, but a diplomatic earthquake. This video reconstructs the exact timeline, the commands shouted from the bridge, and the frames of footage that raised more questions than they answered. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. At 2:11 p.m., radar screens aboard the USS Mason showed a single bright contact racing across calm water 8 nautical miles off Venezuela's coast. The object was small, fast, and unmarked, what sailors called a go-fast. Within seconds, sensors classified it as traveling well over 30 knots, closing directly on the destroyer's bow. The bridge crew watched the echo climb the display as range numbers dropped. No radio transmission, no flag. The Mason's watch officer authorized an optical track, and the ship's cameras locked on a speck cutting through spray. From the first frame, it looked wrong. Too direct, too steady, and too silent. At first, no one fired. Standard protocol separated suspicion from confirmed hostility. The communications team broadcast a warning in English through VHF Channel 16, the international frequency for vessels at sea. Silence. They repeated it in Spanish. Still nothing. Each minute narrowed the distance, and tension spread through the steel compartments like static. The officer of the deck ordered another hail. The engines of the destroyer held position while sailors manned the bridge wings with binoculars, scanning for signal flags or identification numbers that might explain why an unmarked boat was cutting through the Mason's exclusion zone. As the contact closed inside a mile, the ship's surface radar, the SPS-73, continued tracking. The Operator and Combat Information Center called out updates to the bridge. Bearing constant, range decreasing. The captain weighed every word from his watchstanders. Engage, and the Navy could be accused of aggression in foreign waters. Hold back, and the ship could face an attack at close range. The command was clear, even in moments like this. Verify before engaging. The phrase, "We don't assume, we verify," echoed through headsets. No sailor wanted to become the one who misread a fisherman's boat for a threat. The Mason had been assigned to Operation Marlin Shield, an anti-trafficking mission already stirring political friction. Only weeks earlier, other Navy crews had intercepted boats packed with narcotics bound for the Caribbean islands. Every unmarked vessel in this region carried suspicion of cartel links, yet legitimate fishing craft often looked identical on sensors. The line between smugglers and civilians blurred easily under radar. That background pressure made decisions slower, not faster. For the captain, pulling the trigger without proof meant turning a patrol into an international incident. The approaching craft showed 4 people aboard, one handling a metallic object near the stern. The ship's helicopter, circling high as overwatch, relayed video back to the Mason. The object reflected sunlight, a pipe, maybe a fuel tube. Nothing that screamed weapon, but enough to unsettle every viewer in the operations center. The captain ordered one last transmission at 2:21 p.m. The message was blunt and formal. Unknown vessel, you are entering a U.S. Navy exclusion area. Have to and prepare for inspection. The words repeated in Spanish floated across the radio net, unanswered. From this point, response time was measured in heartbeats. On the bridge monitors, the crosshair from the optical tracker stabilized over the small boat, a sign that fire control had a solid lock if needed. Below deck, sailors stood by at defensive stations. And then, just as the captain prepared to either engage or break away, a burst of light filled every display. The explosion was immediate, originating from within the go-fast itself. The shockwave rippled across the water without a single round fired from the Mason. In the seconds that followed, sensors lost the target. The helicopter feed showed smoke and debris spreading across the waves. It was over almost before anyone realized what had happened. The destroyer had never fired. The contact had never spoken. And yet the sea now carried fragments of a vessel that moments earlier had rushed headlong into danger. Why it detonated on its own remained unknown, but the aftermath would pull investigators and diplomats into weeks of confusion over whether this was an attack, a smuggling accident, or something else entirely. The first seconds after the blast were confusion and disbelief. From the Mason's bridge, sailors saw a white flash, then a column of black smoke rise where the radar contact had been. Debris scattered across the surface, bits of hull and aluminum glinting under the afternoon sun. Sensors immediately lost a clear target. The radar echo vanished, replaced by a flickering haze on the screen. Up above, the accompanying MH-60R Seahawk banked and circled, its camera scanning for survivors or signs of a second detonation. Instead, it found silence, only burning fragments drifting apart with the current. The feed confirmed what none of them expected. No rounds fired from the destroyer, no water plumes marking incoming fire, no secondary explosions. The boat had blown apart from within. On board, the operations center recorded every sensor trace while damage control readied teams in case debris had struck the hull. Nothing had. Yet just minutes later, news flashes already echoed through internal networks. Initial Pentagon statements labeled the incident a lawful strike. The term spread before analysts even finished reviewing the Mason's own data logs. Officers who had witnessed the blast looked at each other, unsure how a strike could be claimed when every sensor showed zero projectile impact. The official line framed the destroyed vessel as an armed hostile, but the timing of that claim clashed sharply with what the crew and helicopter had seen. When the recovery mission launched at dawn, 4 life jackets were retrieved from the debris field. None had been inflated. Alongside them floated a scorched metal drum marked with the red PDVSA logo, the emblem of Venezuela's state oil giant. Its paint blistered by heat, the drum appeared to have carried fuel, not explosives. These findings shifted the tone of the investigation. Washington stood by its claim that a narco-terrorist vessel was hit during lawful defense, but Caracas denounced the event as the killing of innocent fishermen. Each government released statements framing the other as reckless. For the sailors who had seen the flash with their own eyes, the politics felt distant but heavy. Satellite imagery taken shortly after the incident revealed more complexity. High-resolution pictures from Planet Labs analysts showed a scattered debris pattern over calm water, but no telltale surface scars matching naval gunfire. There were clear images of U.S. ships in the region conducting counter-narcotics patrols, all operating just outside Venezuelan waters, less than 18 miles from the coast. The absence of missile trails or shell splashes reinforced what internal Navy logs already suggested. The Mason had not fired. But by then, the narrative of a successful strike had spread across news agencies, shaping public opinion before investigators arrived on site. What they did find offered few answers. No contraband, no weapons. The charred PDVSA drum added weight to Venezuela's version that the vessel carried fuel supplies, possibly for local fishermen short on diesel. The 4 retrieved life jackets, clean, unopened, and unused, created a haunting image of people who likely never had time to react. Without survivors, the crew count remained uncertain, though drone footage captured brief flashes of human forms before the explosion. For the men and women aboard the Mason, the emotional weight settled slowly. They had followed the book to the letter, yet 4 lives were still gone under their watch. Legal experts began dissecting the event through the lens of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Its articles limit the use of force to clear threat identification. If evidence later proved the boat harmless, the strike narrative would violate those proportionality rules. But if intelligence truly tied the craft to transnational smugglers, restraint could still be defended as a tragic consequence of lawful pursuit. In high-speed confrontations, the difference between defense and mistake collapses in seconds. The Mason's incident exposed that fragile line, showing how a decision meant to protect can still end in tragedy. Sensor logs later proved the blast was internal, not a strike, shifting blame into a gray zone few command manuals prepare for. Now the question turns to power and accountability. When lethal force is declared lawful defense before full evidence emerges, who writes the record? Those who fired, those who died, or those who briefed the press? Transparency may be the only barrier left between precaution and catastrophe.